So folks, we got a few more Wailing Caverns cards here to discuss. I'm not sure what the scoop was on these. They came out from an official source, but also we don't have official translations. So we're going to talk about a couple of the 4 cards in detail and then tease a couple more, which I think we'll have to get into later. But for now, we can start things off with a new Druid legendary, Lady ANACONDRA. She's going to be a 6 mana, 3/7. And she reads, your nature spells cost 2 less. And I got to be honest, anytime I see like a cost discount in Hearthstone, I get a little scared because we know anytime mana cheats happen, things tend to get broken. And of course, I'm worried that that potential exists for Lady ANACONDRA as well. Start chaining off nature spells. I'm assuming if you get 2 of these on board, their effects are going to stack, although I could actually argue both directions there. It kind of just depends on what Blizzard decides, but my assumption at the moment is that they'll stack. So if you like play this plus a cheap Germination, which would only cost 2 mana, you could get 2 Lady ANACONDRAs on board and go crazy. Even if they don't stack, you can still just play a lot of cards in a single turn. There are a handful of different 2 mana nature spells, which will become 0. Most notably, perhaps, is Solar Eclipse. So you can imagine some real cheese there with Solar Eclipse. And your brain just starts spinning on all the possibilities. Now, that said, when you go look at the current pool of nature spells for Druid, there aren't that many, and there's nothing like crazy scary, like, damage outputs or anything that might set up an OTK that we can visualize at the moment. But of course, this is not all the nature spells that will exist during Lady ANACONDRA's rotation, so we don't know what's in store for the future, and effects like this that are just universally big discounts can cause problems and create issues. Now, that said, one angle for ANACONDRA to go, we could consider as something like Celestial Alignment Druid. If you make all your cards cost 1 and then you play Lady ANACONDRA, all your nature spells, no matter how big, will presumably go down to 0, and you could really chain off with some Cenarian wards and some crazy stuff in a post Celestial Alignment world with Lady ANACONDRA, providing you more of a swing and stabilization opportunity on the back of that deck. So that's another angle for ANACONDRA right there. So, if you look at ANACONDRA today, I think maybe there's not quite enough to ensure her success, not enough like crazy nature spells, not enough big combos that are possible. Maybe just Celestial Alignment, which I'm not sure is really ever going to be a top tier thing. It still feels like slightly more meme than real, even though there are some like tier 3 lists out there at the moment. Maybe this is enough to get that over the hump. But even if it's not, this is one of those cards where somewhere down the road, it feels like something's going to figure out a way to break this. And there's going to be enough nature spells. You're going to hit that like critical mass of nature spells once we get a couple more expansions down the road. And suddenly Lady ANACONDRA opens up just crazy swing turn potential because of her discount, some kind of weird draw engine because of her discount, or maybe just an OTK or combo that sets up a victory directly. So whichever direction Lady ANACONDRA goes, it feels like she's going to carve out some path just because this discount is so notable. And her cost as 6 mana is really not that expensive for Druid. They often don't mind paying this penalty to set up something really big, particularly with all the Lightning Blooms and stuff of the world out there. So Lightning Bloom into ANACONDRA, get some mana to spare, and just go crazy on your discounts. I think that's going to have a lot of potential strength. So next up here, we have a card whose official name we don't know yet. We haven't seen the English version of this name, some kind of snake with feathers and stuff. I don't know the name of these in Wailing Caverns. Somebody out there could take a guess. But we do know its effect and stats. It's an 8 mana 4/9 beast for Druid. And it reads, after you cast a nature spell, summon a 4/2 snake with Rush. So another nature spell synergy card here. I mean, theoretically one you could play alongside ANACONDRA, get some cheap nature spells and blow up a board with a bunch of 4/2 snakes with Rush. Another card that has some interesting applications with Celestial Alignment. You can play this really cheaply alongside other cheap nature spells, getting some 4/2s to help you stabilize post alignment and swing a game back in your favor. And of course, this is very reminiscent of just exotic Mount Seller, which in Spell Druid back in the day got played fairly often and was in a very high tier list. You would play exotic Mount Seller and Fungal Fortunes and Innervates and all these other things, and sometimes Kael'thas when he was back in his original state in particular, and just build a big board. And especially it was noteworthy in that world, getting rush minions off your exotic Mount Seller often felt like the best case scenario, particularly that 4/1 Diving Griffin, Zixor I think was around as well. Those all felt like the payoff, and this minion's going to have that rush payoff immediately. So and guaranteed, unlike, you know, you could get Silverback Patriarchs off your exotic Mount Seller, which sometimes felt like a low roll, although sometimes the taunt was quite handy as well. So anyway, a little bit more consistent and guaranteed here because you know what kind of minion you're getting. Now, on the other sides, there are some conditions to meet here. This is a little bit more expensive at 8 mana, and it has to be specifically nature spells, both of which I think are a pretty big check on the power level of this card. Also noteworthy is that exotic Mount Seller Spell Druid going to exist in that form in the future? Does that deck just come together? Does the meta line up? I don't actually think that's all that likely. We saw nerfs to cards like Fungal Fortunes already. Kael'thas got nerfed as well, which was a big part of that deck back in the day, although there were different versions. Some went without Kael'thas just fine, for the record. But, you know, the stars kind of have to align again for that kind of deck to make sense. And it just seems unlikely to me that sort of package is going to be there. Plus, this is more expensive at 8 mana, so you could run a card like Living Seed to perhaps discount this, making it 6 mana, but then you got to run another potentially subpar card in your list just to get to that sort of old Mount Seller state. It's just, you start suddenly checking off a lot of boxes, like I got to do all these things to make this card good. So yeah, I don't know. I think a lot of you will like this card more than me. I just don't think it has the like game-winning, game-shifting potential of Lady Anacondra, even though they do similar sorts of things with nature spells. I don't know. Share your thoughts. I'm open to it. I kind of hated exotic Mount Seller as well, and that ended up being a good card. So maybe I'm falling into the same traps here with this guy as I did with exotic Mount Seller. Perhaps I'll be just as wrong about this one, but I'm curious if you guys agree or disagree. And then for these next two, we don't know the exact effect on these. So I'm not officially reviewing these yet, but they were revealed in some capacity, so I want to show them to you. Basically, we have a neutral ooze minion with a death rattle that summons a 2/2 adventurer with a random effect. And that's the part we don't know. What is the random effect? Many people are speculating it's just going to be a keyword like taunt or divine shield or rush or poisonous, maybe lifesteal. Until we're sure, it's kind of hard to say just what, you know, how good these are going to be. They could be other effects that we're not speculating on. So if it's just a keyword, that's actually pretty intriguing, right? Like 2 bodies on a 3-drop there is really nice. And most of those effects are really quite positive in a 3-mana minion. I think that would be a decent minion if indeed that is what we get. But again, we'll talk about it when we see. So other card's a 7-mana Paladin spell that summons 5 2/2 adventurers with random effects. And same story, like that's a 10/10 total stat dump. It's quite a bit of stuff. And if they have effects that are interesting enough, then yeah, it could be a great board reload. There is, of course, that risk that, you know, you just get a bunch of minions that maybe don't do a lot, like just a couple taunts and a rush, and the rush is like, it's okay. Your opponent just kind of pushes through your 2/2s and it doesn't go far. So without some kind of discount or way to cheese these token boards, I don't know if the 7-mana spell feels quite as good to me as the 3-drop, but again, we need to see the effects. If it's a specific pool or something more unique, could be fine. Otherwise, seems pretty late game and not quite disruptive enough. But I do like the ooze here quite a bit. But share your thoughts, speculations on what you think these effects will be, and if you think these cards will be any good if they are just base keyword style effects. But I'm not going to get into it anymore until we know for sure what's going on with these cards. Lady Anacondra is a 4-star card. This weird bird dude with wings is a 2-star card. And there you go. It sounds like it's going to be a few days before we get more cards. I saw on Twitter these are going to be the final reveals for the day, I guess. Or I'm not even sure they wanted to reveal these. I still don't know the scoop on these cards. But sounds like it's going to be Tuesday until we get more cards, at least. Because that is the holiday weekend, Memorial Day weekend here in the United States. So Blizzard won't be at work. They called it a long weekend on Twitter. So I'm assuming Tuesday before we get more cards. So quite a bit of a wait, but hopefully these will tide you over until then. I want to see lots of thoughts and discussions on these cards below. In particular, I think both of these Druid cards are a little bit hard to assess. So I'm curious to see what you guys think. Is this the nuts? Is it going to blow Druid up? Is this way better than I'm expecting? Is it exotic Mount Seller 2.0, or will that deck have trouble getting there? I am absolutely open to lots of thoughts on these because I don't feel very confident in either of these assessments, frankly. That said, curious to hear those thoughts. Leave them in the comments below. Thanks so much as always for watching. Stay tuned a few days from now for more cards, and until then, game on.